we start off with the usual student-teacher prayer. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavaditam Mastuma Vidvishavai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May that one protect us both. May that one nourish us both. May we work together with great vigor. May our study be illumined. May we not unnecessarily cavil with each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. So I chose as this afternoon subject meditation. We get many, many queries about meditation and what is it. And there are many good understandings and poor understandings with regard to it. So this is an open session. That means that you're free to interrupt or put your hand up or ask a question. And because the purpose of these sessions, I think, on a Thursday is to get some practical practice going and to address any difficulties or problems you might have in what seems to be, for many, a very difficult subject, and that is meditation. I actually don't use the word meditation. I prefer the phrase, a game of guiding thought, because that defines what meditation is. So we can start off with a definition, that it is a game of guiding thought. We can have, of course, many, many other different definitions. And there are many, many different types of meditation. You can say, if 7 billion people on this planet meditate, there will be certainly 7 billion different types of meditation. Why would that be? Because there are different obstacles for different personalities in the way of a practice such as meditation. One common difficulty is that if you spend 99.999% of your day in a stressful condition, running here, running there, some difficulties in your working, waking life, you'll bring them all into the meditation field. And so there are prerequisites. I'm going to use the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita as our guide, because it is, in fact, the chapter on Dhyana Yoga. So it is the yoga of meditation. But bear in mind, the whole of the Bhagavad Gita, all 18 chapters, is in some way meditation. The whole of the Upanishads is used in different ways. Firstly, elucidating the principles of the Vedanta philosophy. Secondly, giving you some level of logic, some reasoning about it. And thirdly, apart from giving you that structure, giving you some material for meditation. So it is much easier to tell you what meditation is not. Meditation is not emptying the mind, and meditation is not keeping it blank. Meditation is not focusing the mind on one thing. These are what meditation is not. Let me go through a few different varieties of meditation. There is impersonal meditation, that is meditation dedicated to the non-dual being. There is that kind of meditation. Broadly speaking, another kind of meditation will be devotional meditation. Another kind of meditation will be the capacity to be aware to the extent that you stand in a position of pure being. So these are generalized understandings about meditation. And then, of course, there's the joke, the advert I once saw, may your medication be sweet. And many people consider meditation to be a kind of medication, a kind of panacea of diseases or of difficult circumstances. Of course, we give a meditation workshop, where again we call it the art of meditation, game of guiding thought. So I thought it would be quite useful to bring a few slides up from that course. I'm going to share the screen and you can see. So this is how I describe meditation, as a game of guiding thought where to noble heights, nobler heights. The mind or the attention is generally speaking at lower levels. And so the Bhagavad Gita wants us in the 6th chapter to make sure that we prepare the mind by getting rid of cravings. Cravings, in fact, are man's worst enemy. And so meditation doesn't begin with sitting. It begins with using a formula in your waking life that settles the mind. When people ask me, please can I go on a meditation workshop, I ask why. Why do you want to learn meditation? And they say, in order to get peace of mind. I say, you're on the wrong course. You need to go somebody else because you need to go and get peace of mind. Then you can come and meditate. So there's some preconditions for meditation. There's no point in you sitting down and trying to steady the mind when your mind is inherently unsteady and it requires strength. So you've seen or heard of the example of the wavering mind compared to something like a monkey mind. And so the story goes, imagine a monkey that is naturally restless by its own nature, is always scratching or moving or looking, always alert, always active, always running, never really sitting still, so it's restless by its own nature. Now, if we are to apply that analogy to the mind, it's only because we never bothered to train the mind. There are two ways to train an animal. You can confront it, you can whip it, you can be cruel to it, you can struggle against it, you can be strict with it, or the other way. The other way is to approach it from the side, to do it subtly. Like approaching an animal, you do it from the side. You don't look the animal in the eye. If you look a dog in the eye, the dog will attack you. It'll take it as an act of aggression. You look somewhere else in the distance. The dog is looking out of the side of the corner of his eye, and you put your hand out for a little sniffing, and the dog sniffs the fingers and the hands a little bit, and you don't move the hand, so the dog is quite happy that you don't feel any danger from it. And then you gradually maneuver the fingers to the back of the ear, give a small tickle, a stroke, a pat on the head. Then you can look wherever you like. So it is the same thing with the mind. With the mind, dialoguing with the mind is a wonderful technique for settling the mind and for applying a certain necessary ability called discrimination or discernment. Sorting out in advance what is valuable, what is not, what is worthwhile, what is otherwise, what is real, what is unreal, what is permanent, what is impermanent, what is fleeting, and then questioning. Why would I attach the mind to this? Why would I engender cravings? There's a beautiful profile that I mentioned yesterday in the Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter already. It tells us about a psychological degradation, a regression. It starts off with the equivalent of brooding. You're brooding on something. In other words, the senses are permitted to alight on something that our memory registers as something that is a compensation or a delight, something that we would like to have. But these cravings or desires are not just for objects, because behind it all is a desire connected with your personality. That is, we are concerned with such things as, what will people think of us? Will people reject us? So there are a number of things like that that we are concerned of, and it boils down to one concern: to live life so that we never cease to exist, to continue perpetuating physical life. That's really the main concern. But in this regard, we are no different from any other animal species. What makes man different? Man is different because man has the capacity to take discord and transform it into harmony. There's a unique capability of man. The second thing is that man has the capacity to transcend all the biological imperatives, namely the propagation of the species, and secondly, sustaining biological physical life. So how do we begin this art of meditation? We start with a certain way of looking at the world, which is useful to us. We can consider this second heading a game of guiding thought to nobler heights. We take it as a game. So now I give you an example that I often use. Supposing 20 seconds is available for you, and you want to know what is the mind doing within the 20 seconds. After the first 4 seconds, with a kind of sense of humor, you say, this is a game, let me make the Lord of the universe our scorekeeper. Please, Lord, what is our score? He says, well, while you were brushing the teeth or involved in a blankness of the mind, so no such thing as blankness unless it's sleep, but the mind is just wandering here and there and everywhere, and during that period, you thought about somebody who scandalized against you and the revenge that you'll take. Something like I'll put poison in his tea or something like that. -4. All right, things which are -4 because every thought carries through infallibly to the end. The reason for that is that the thinker is God. We think that we're an individual with individual mind and capability. No, there's only one cosmic mind. Tomorrow we celebrate Ganesha Chaturthi, and what many people don't understand fully is that this great remover of obstacles is a cosmic mind itself. What is the clue? Symbol for a cosmic mind is the Devanagari combination of written as Om. If you look carefully at this Om sign, you'll see a pot belly, you'll see a tusk, you'll see an ear. And this Lord of all beings, Gana, is really the son of this auspicious one, Shiva, that in Shaivism will create the world. So that the first movement in the tantric language of energy known as Shakti, and in the mythological story called Parvati, the product is a sun. And we see that in the depths of meditation, we'll see that the head represents wisdom, the strength, the capacity to remove obstacles. But strength is the key characteristic. Without strength, we can't do anything. So let us look back at this monkey mind. Restless by its own nature, then what happens? It drinks the wine of desire, the wine of cravings. It's thrashing about in a drunken milieu and restless by its own nature also. Can something else happen? Yes. Can be stung by the scorpion, a scorpion of jealousy. So it's hopping on one foot and drunken as well and restless by its own nature. And then further to that is possessed by a ghost, possessed by pride, possessed by jealousy, possessed by desire, and restless by its own nature. How to control such an entity? We can take the life lessons from the story of Rama, the Ramayana. There we will see that Hanuman, Maricha, is the great hero of the story and happens to be in a monkey form. On the shores there, about to jump across the ocean, finds himself self-doubting. And he's given a big lecture, which is there, and he finds his own inner strength based on, no, you are the son of the wind. And as soon as he knows this essential divine nature of his, he realizes he has the capacity to go as small as he likes or as big as he likes. He becomes omnipotent. And he's able to jump across the ocean and even succumb those who want to interfere with his journey. And he creates havoc and mayhem there because of this capacity to be subtle or gross. The whole mind can be made to be very subtle and also can be made to be extremely all-knowing. You can fill it with knowledge. But the key is its strength. And so Anjaneya, Hanuman, is the embodiment of strength. That means if we say that we have a monkey mind, we can have a Hanuman mind also. That mind can be made strong. That's the meaning of this Anjaneya or Hanuman. It need not be a monkey mind. How to strengthen the mind? Concentration. What do we mean by concentration? We start off with controlling all our cravings. Cravings can be, as I say, for sense objects in the world or for subtle enjoyments, even in heaven. And both kinds of pleasure must be given up. So cravings are a seeker's real enemies, says the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Now let us just move a slide on. So is there a purpose to meditation? And the reason why I mentioned this is because meditation has become very popular, whatever that may be. And very often we confuse subjects, modern subjects such as mindfulness, with meditation. So many people, they embark on meditation. They say, oh, I meditate. But actually, what does it mean? And why are they doing it? Well, some people are recommended by a doctor. Yes, meditation will be good for your stress. Some people just want peace of mind. Other people want some health benefits. Other people simply want to develop concentration. But none of these are really the purpose of meditation as we understand it. Because meditation is an inward journey that results in the only real personal encounter with the truth that we have. We can only do this in meditation. There is no other way, no other method. And all the other methods lead up to it. That is why it is called by Patanjali the royal yoga. It is Raja Yoga, because it is common to all methods. Everybody can establish an equilibrium of the mind. So the purpose of meditation, you'll see, is we have two things. We can call it A and B. So A is the subject, B is the object. If we are to perceive anything, these two things must be present. There must be a perceiver and something that is perceived. The third thing, of course, is necessary. That is the link between the two. These are two sides of consciousness. So firstly, to be increasingly aware of the subject A and eliminate the B. I just reduce this so I can see. Or reduce it to a minimum. And two, to access that inspirational part of the mind, which can be termed the superconscious mind. To understand this, we have to understand the basis of Sankhya psychology that says that the mind or the field of the mind has three aspects to it. The unconscious mind, most of us are operating there 90% of the time. It ranges from the unconscious movement of the heart, digestion, all of these things, the habit level really. And others can be impressions, what you call samskaras. Whatever action you do accumulates as learned behavior in some form or another, and the sum total of this becomes you and your personality. Then there is the conscious mind. Conscious mind, where we are fully aware, where attention is tuned, where we use our discerning faculty to direct our attention here or there, an awareness of the current and present moment, a kind of blank space that can be occupied and filled with whatever we want, or simply a recipient awareness of the environment in which we sit. And then there is the superconscious mind. It is the superconscious mind that geniuses tap into, wittingly or unwittingly. And when we train the mind in concentration, that is, when we take our attention and tune it in one single direction, do it constantly, it becomes a revealer. And the revealer is from within. This we call the superconscious mind. It is the inspirational part of the mind. Okay, right. Then what is meditation? Well, I can give you many definitions, and I want to give you a variety. It is a state of inner absorption in which the mind flows continuously and spontaneously toward the object of meditation. Just to remind you, meditation is not emptying the mind, like as if it were a garbage can. And meditation is not emptying the mind. Meditation is not keeping the mind blank. You keep the mind blank, you will fall asleep. The mind is not designed for that. The mind has a creative faculty that should and must be used, a kind of inner construction with an inner kind of script, running script, a directed series of thoughts accompanied by feelings that lead the mind to a common entity. Something like constructing a runway. You take an airplane trip, you'll have to have an airplane, we have it. Body, mind, we have it. And then we have to make sure there is a runway. And so a number of preparations are necessary that come under the general heading of meditation. But true meditation, in its classical form, where it's leading to, is when only one thought in the mind is present. So it is a state of inner absorption in which the mind flows continuously and spontaneously toward an object of meditation as compared to pouring oil from one vessel continuously to another. Oops, let's go back. Let us see what is meditation according to authoritative texts. The Bhagavad Gita compares the state of the mind in meditation to be like a steady flame of a lamp sheltered in a windless place. Mostly when we light a flame, such as a candle or a lamp, the flame flickers. It's constantly consuming its fuel, and it's wavering about in different ways, blown away, blown by all kinds of factors, the wind, the air, and so on. And of course, it's subject to the availability of oxygen around it. Patanjali and all our meditation essentially comes from Patanjali Yoga Sutras. It is the philosophy of meditation. And so, broadly speaking, it would be the formula for all kinds and types of meditation. So he puts it as the unbroken flow of the whole mind toward the object of concentration. The Srimad Bhagavatam says, it is a state in which the meditator becomes one with the object of meditation. Ramanuja, the famous proponent of the Vishishtadvaita system which we mainly practice, that is that it is not just dualistic, nor is it non-dualistic, But for practical purposes, we can see this world as this non-dual reality. He says it's a state of spontaneous and loving remembrance of the most beloved. This is the devotional aspect. And the comparatively modern author Joel Goldsmith, who writes the book Art of Meditation, gives this most beautiful definition of devotional meditation. It is a continuous song of gratitude that God is here, that God is now, and that God is love. And I think this is the most beautiful definition I've come across for devotional meditation. A continuous song of gratitude that God is here, is now, and is love. There are 4 classes of aspirants. We won't go into that for the time being. But many people say, I find it difficult to sit down and meditate, particularly in the evening. And so for that reason, in the beginning at least, we have to understand that we have to be in the mood to meditate. And in the beginning, we have to artificially create that mood. So selecting the right living place, because most of your meditation will be in the place in which you live. And if you're serious about spiritual practice, you will have to have something like a puja room or a meditation room. Many Hindu devotees have both. Puja room, something like, or space, maybe in the kitchen or something, where there's an assemblage of all the various forms of deities that people have sent us and so on, put that there. That's one thing. But the meditation space should be simple. The meditation space should be selected. In this regard, we can follow Swami Vivekananda's recommendations contained in his commentary on the Patanjali Yoga Sutras in the book Raja Yoga. That first steps, he says, you should select a place, a brief space. I'll read out what he has to say in first steps. He says, those of you who can afford it will do better to have a room for the practice of meditation alone. Do not sleep in that room. You must not enter the room until you have bathed and are perfectly clean in body and mind. Place flowers in that room always. They are the best surroundings for a yogi. Also pictures that are pleasing. Burn incense morning and evening. Have no quarreling, nor anger, nor unholy thought in that room. Only allow those persons to enter it who are of the same thought as you. Then gradually there will be an atmosphere of holiness in the room, so that when you are miserable, sorrowful, doubtful, or your mind is disturbed, the very fact of entering that room will make you calm. And this was the idea of the temple and the church, and in some temples and churches you will find it even now. But in the majority of them, the very idea has been lost. The idea is that by keeping holy vibrations there, the place becomes and remains illumined. Those who cannot afford to have a room set apart can practice anywhere they like. Sit in a straight posture, and so it goes on. All right. Then the environment must be congenial. This is why people go off to retreats. One retreat down in Cork, a Buddhist center, there's a hall where you look out and you feel you're one with the sea. That idea of infinite space is there. There's a reason why the great meditators selected the grand atmosphere of the forests at the foothills of the Himalayas, looking at the grand peaks, or rivers, or forests, or any of these environments. And in the room itself, you can also create that same kind of congenial environment. Part of this making a congenial environment is, if you're in an enclosed space, making a ritual. A ritual is a kind of underlying endorsement to the mind that makes things easy. If you cannot sit and meditate, then for those who find it difficult, there is temple worship. The people go to a mandir. The root of the word is the same thing as the manas, the mind. And in the South Indian temples, the arrangement of the temples is in levels and layers, circles, if you will, so that you go from the outside representing the physical by the gopuram, and then you go to the first inner layer, if you will, or courtyard, and you perambulate around in a clockwise direction. And with each courtyard, you're going inward, 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 inward. You can think of that until finally you come to the space in the heart that in temple worship is called the garbha, the womb, the inner place, the place of origin where your deity sits. Same thing, your deity sits in the heart. So make sure that it is a propitious time. Traditionally, there are propitious times that we can meditate where the mind is naturally steady. For example, the early morning before the sunrise, even when the sun rises, midday, the evening as the sun sets, and midnight. These are the 4 auspicious times of the day, and you can even divide it up further to try and catch what is the mood of the day. You must be in a favorable physical condition, otherwise you'll sit down and you'll be meditating on your arthritic knee. So make sure that the body is nicely tuned up. This is the whole reason really for the Hatha Yoga exercise. When people in the West talk about yoga, they're normally talking about a series of Hatha Yoga postures, asanas. But really, all the postures are for the purpose of meditation. All those described in such texts as the Giranda Samhita, the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, and so on, they will describe in great detail postures suitable for meditation. And the others, they won't describe in any detail. So keep yourself physically fit. Make sure there's no physical disturbance. What you want to do in meditation is eliminate distractions, things that take the mind away. And if the body is suffering, then all your concentration will be on the body. Make sure that you keep holy company. There is a temptation in the COVID virus days now that we can easily just attend things on Zoom. But then you're not getting darshana. What does that mean? You're not getting the quality, the sight of the deity and the sight of the holy people. You're not getting the benefit of their blessings directly. There's a transforming quality to our ashram here, and there's a transforming and calming quality to those who lead the monastic life, or anybody indeed who is holy. So make sure that you're keeping holy company, and the best holy company you can keep is to be continuously in the presence of the divine, practicing the presence of the divine. Make sure your speech is matching. That means your thoughts and your words come out the same. Make sure that your speech is enlightening others. Again, referring to the Bhagavad Gita, where it deals with tapasya. There's 3 kinds of tapasya: physical, one of speech, and one of mind. Make sure that your speech is elevating to another, delightful, uplifting, cheerful. Don't use your speech for negativity or complaints or criticism. Have a purity of food. Actually, spiritual life really begins with this food. What do we mean by purity of food? Of course, we know about hygienic food. That's one thing. But there has to be one ingredient in cooking: love. When you go to a restaurant, you have no idea what the chef puts together. He doesn't care if he sneezes on the food or what, as long as it looks presentable. So we have to make sure that food is imbued with higher vibrations, vibrations which are pure, vibrations that are filled with sanctity. We have to make sure that all our food is previously offered and therefore is prasad. And then the right method has to be made. There are two aspects to this right method. One is there has to be a step-by-step approach to meditation. These steps are laid out as Ashtanga Yoga. 8 steps are there, 8 limbs. Secondly, we have to make sure that we follow the specific directions given by a competent teacher who has an insight into the various struggles of your own mind, your own psyche, and will help you overcome these. One pointed loyalty to the ideal. Ramakrishna gives us a great example of somebody digging a well. And in the process of digging, somebody, well-meaning person no doubt, comes along and says, "Oh, if I were you, I would not dig this well here. I would dig it over there." And so he goes to the over there and starts digging. And as he's digging, somebody else comes along and says, "What on earth are you doing? You'll not find water there under those trees." That's right. Like that, 4 or 5 different people come along, free consultants, giving their friendly advice, well-meaning advice, but disturbing advice, because had he taken all the effort, all the meterage that he dug and kept to the one place, he would have discovered the water. So there's one point of loyalty to the ideal, and part of this devotional meditation will be to have a chosen ideal, something that is psychologically and emotionally suitable for you, a form of God that you love the most. Why are we mentioning this devotional kind of meditation? Because it is the most common, most easy form of meditation that we have. And then acts of service in our day.
Can I ask a question here?
Yes, please do.
Yes, you are explaining, but you said that devotional kind is the most easy. How so?
Oh, okay. So for that, we have to go to the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. This is a very important question that you just asked. The 12th chapter is called Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of devotion. In all the previous chapters, up to the chapter 10 and 11, actually chapter 10, 11th is now breaking through on devotional aspect of spiritual life. So the emphasis so far has been on the formless, the imperishable. And because of that, and now the aspect of devotion has been raised, Arjuna asks a question. So he says, those devotees who ever steadfast, evam satata yukta ye bhaktas tam paryupasate, steadfast, worship you thus. You, that means personal God. And those others who worship the imperishable, the unmanifest. Which of these are best versed in yoga? Bring it in the context of meditation, which is a kind of worship. Should we meditate on the formless aspect or the one with form, is the question in the meditation context. And Sri Bhagavan Vacha, the Blessed Lord said, those who worship me, that is the personal form, fixing their minds on me, ever steadfast and endowed with supreme faith, them I regard as the best spiritual practitioners or yogins. But those who worship the imperishable, so what does that mean? These are the best people who have this form of God. But those who worship the Avyakta, the Akshara, the imperishable, the indefinable, unmanifest, omnipresent, inconceivable, unchanging, immovable, and eternal, you get the point. But here's the condition. Having subdued all the senses, even minded under all conditions, and devoted to the good of all beings, welfare of all beings, truly they also come to me. So you have +1 so far. All right. But here's the problem. The next verse. Greater is their difficulty whose minds are set on the unmanifest. For the goal of the unmanifest is very hard for the embodied to reach. This term embodied is a very, very interesting term. The term is dehavadbir. That is, if you in any way identify yourself in any way with the body, and by extension the personality, then you have a great difficulty if you want to conceive of this entity in meditation or otherwise as an imperishable, impersonal, formless entity. For the goal of the unmanifest is very hard for the embodied to reach. It's not so easy. But those who consecrate all their actions to me, regarding me as the supreme goal, and who worship me, meditating on me with single-minded devotion, to them whose minds are thus absorbed in me, I very soon, it's a quick remedy, become the deliverer from the ocean of transmigration or transmigrational existence, beset with death. That's after all the aim. Fix your mind on me alone. Let your thoughts dwell on me hereafter. You will live in me alone. Of this there's no doubt. So that is the reason why I say it's the easiest. Now, if you don't have a form, then this is where a competent teacher has to help you. Because you can consider this physical form or this Ishta Devata or chosen ideal as something like a keyhole. A keyhole presents you with a form. Let us say you have a door to a garden. And you know there's a garden beyond, but all you can see is a little section of the garden through a keyhole. So that keyhole leads you to the garden. But ultimately, at the final stage, the door opens and you see everything yourself firsthand. And so at that certain point, the form yields to the formless in an easy and natural way, the truth of pure being. So there are other ways to create moods as well. So acts of service, the right motive. In meditation, there is no first person singular or future tense. There's no such thing as competitive meditation. You're not there to get anything. No, and you can see the picture there, summary, and there's a sunset. I don't know if it's a sunset or a sunrise. But when you look at a beautiful scene like that, you don't want to possess it and put it into your pocket and carry it away. You're not there to do anything. You're simply there as a listening recipient, absorbing the scene. This is akin to meditation. Throughout the working, waking life, you have to apply discrimination. Sometimes devotional music will help, or any music that calms the mind. Chanting of sacred texts can be used. Ritualistic practices, even by just lighting a lamp or putting some flowers there. The Zen Buddhists, they prostrate, make a salutation to the seat on which they're going to meditate. And then pranayama, that is, steadying the breath so that the nervous system does not disturb you. The practice of Jabra, that is, loving repetition of a sacred name. And regularity and balance of practice. These are 18 mood cultivators. All right. So what is the process? The process is a gradual devolution. It's merging of three disciplinary aspects: the object of meditation, the act of meditation, and you, the meditator. And when these three things merge with increased absorption, the Sanya merges into the Gayatri, Gayatri into Om, and Om into Samadhi. All right, we won't go into all of that. So these are just some preliminary aspects about meditation. Just to review some misunderstandings. Focus is a misunderstanding. Often you hear in respect of meditation the phrase, focus your attention. But I have to say, no more foolish thing or idea of meditation could we have. That would be like hitting one note on a piano over and over and becoming a public nuisance. And just as the water supply is there, you pour it this way, you pour it that. Lord here, Lord there. Your grace has thought, let me, please come this way, please come that way. Another misunderstanding, as I mentioned, is making the mind blank. Meditation is picking up a scene. It's not making the mind blank. You make the mind blank, you'll fall asleep. There was a famous episode in Trafalgar Square in the 1960s. A certain meditation practice, which had become popular, advertised. 7,000 people meditated in Trafalgar Square. But the method was to knock every thought out. So every time a thought comes up, hit it with a meaningless mantra. Well, you may as well say it, not that 7,000 people meditated. 7,000 people fell asleep. And I think it's much better if you lie down and sleep, not sit up. Much more relaxing. But nothing to do with meditation. Doing nothing. No, meditation is not doing nothing. Meditation is a deliberately cultivated state that is less confined or circumscribed. It is not like other states of consciousness, not just sitting around doing nothing. You could even make this definition, and I give it so many times. Meditation is a planned dream. The events in a dream, we have no idea. They're all haphazard. We can't plan anything there. But we can take the delightful components that we find in a dream and steer it, make it our runway to nobler heights. So make meditation a planned dream. Another error is making God a supply agent. The danger of the dualistic system that I've mentioned, that is having a form of God, there is a danger in it. And the danger is the habit of making God a supply agent. It's not for enriching the ego from God's infinite storehouse that we do meditation. It's not seeking something which is not here. It's already here. And within it, there's no expectation, no competitiveness, or future orientation. Meditation hasn't an objective goal. No, there's no objective goal in meditation. It's not for your personal enrichment. It's not for your benefit. It's not for health. It's not for peace of mind. There is no I-ness in meditation. Quite the opposite. So these are some of the misconceptions that are associated with meditation.
Can I interrupt you there, Swami?
Yes, of course you can. Yeah.
When you said there's no goal, but if the goal is it? It's very. You're attacked. You know you can get attacked. I've gotten. As you say, there's you can have different, you're guiding your focus in meditation and inwardly, like to remove, to help with Shiva, burn lust, burn karma inwardly. And
you see, that will have to be done before you meditate.
Really? So that's all done through the mind?
You see, that's why the Bhagavad Gita's chapter on meditation doesn't begin with sitting.
Yeah.
It says, it begins like this. The Lord said, he who does the work he ought to do without depending on the fruit of the action. In other words, do all your actions in your daily waking life without any future understanding or consequences. In other words, with no objective either. Of course, there is some objective somewhere which you keep out of sight.
Okay.
You set your goal and you leave it there. And so, without depending on the fruit of action, he is, and the term used is a sannyasi. That doesn't mean to say a monk or somebody who withdraws from life. It means somebody who gives up their attachment to the effects, to the consequences of their actions. No motives. That's the meaning of it. And he is a yogi, not he who is without ritualism, sacrificial fire, and so on. So that puts that away. Now the next thing he says, know that as yoga, meaning concentration in the sense, meditation, which is called sannyasa, for no one becomes a yogi without renouncing desire for that fruit of action. Before you even sit, your life has to be regulated like this. Otherwise, all your 99.99% of your day will crowd in, like unwanted traffic in Cork at rush hour. So for the person of contemplation who wants to attain this state of meditation, action is said to be the means, but when he has attained this supreme concentration, serenity is said to be the means. When one has no attachment to sense objects or actions and has renounced all the things that get sewn in and put into increased duplications of cycles, doing the same thing over and over again out of habit, that is really your own self-centered will or thoughts, then alone is one said to have attained the capacity to meditate, otherwise called yoga. Then this famous passage of doing away with cravings. Let a man raise himself by himself. Let him not drag himself down, for he himself is his friend and he himself is his enemy. It means take your attention, don't allow it to be diverted, but raise it up to the highest, the noblest thoughts. This is what I'm saying is the game of guiding thought. And to him who has conquered his self, meaning his lower self, his body and mind, by the self, by the higher self. His own self is a friend, but to him who has not conquered this physical embodied aspect of it or attachment, his own self acts like an enemy. The self-disciplined, that's what's required, and serene person, man, remains steadfast in the supreme self, in cold and heat, pleasure, pain, as well as honor and dishonor, because that entity is seeing an equilibrium and equanimity everywhere, with one self in all. That yogi is steadfast, whose heart, through knowledge and realization, is filled with satisfaction, who has conquered his senses, and to whom a lump of earth and stone and gold are the same. Sri Ramakrishna did it literally. He took clay and gold coins and said, clay, gold, gold, clay, threw them both into the Ganga. Okay, this is all background now. Preparation for meditation. What's the next thing? He stands supreme who has equal regard for well-wishers, friends, enemies, neutrals, arbiters, the hateful relatives, for saints and sinners alike. Patanjali in his Yoga Sutras puts it that it be friendly to all, see, congratulate, be happy for the successful, be compassionate towards those who are suffering or unsuccessful, and have a neutral mind toward virtue and vice. Don't criticize anybody, in other words. And see if you can cultivate an aspect of thankfulness and contentment. That's useful. Now that your mind is nicely conditioned, a yogi should always try to concentrate his mind, living alone in solitude, ideally, but if not living alone in solitude, at least for meditation purposes. When you sit down, understand only me and the Supreme, or me and God, that's all there is here. Sometimes when we do a retreat and we do meditation together in a group, and there's absolute silence. And one of the instructions I have to give is, don't worry about other people, whether they're shuffling around, whether somebody came in late or not. It is only you and your beloved sitting there. That is it. That's all it is. John Vianney was very famous for noticing a man sitting in a church for long periods of time. He was curious. He was bold enough to ask, what were you doing there? He said, I'm nothing. I just look at him and he just looks at me. Allowing yourself to be loved, not struggling. Will I deserve love? Will you make me deserving of it? So, living alone like this, having subdued his mind and body and got rid of desires and possessions, equivalent to I and mine. These belong to me, and this is who I am. In a clean place, having firmly fixed his seat, neither too high nor too low, and having spread over it kusha grass or deerskin and cloth, one over the other, now he's addressing how to meditate. And don't take this literally. It simply means in a comfortable, clean place that is imbued, as Swami Vivekananda gives in his first steps, with a strong divine vibration, making the place sanctified and holy. In that you sit, and then from verses 12 to 15, he describes the method, sitting on that seat, making the mind one-pointed and restraining the activities of the mind and senses. He should practice this. So there is one motive for meditation only. Self-purification, that's all. Cleaning the mind. Yeah. We clean the body with water. We clean the internal part of the body with exercise and so on, moving the lymph round and doing we can do various cleansing kriyas, if you will, in Hatha Yoga and so on and so forth, cleaning the body internally. How do we clean the mind? Through prayer, japa, and meditation. Make your mind the sitting room of the Lord. Make sure it is clean. And then he goes on, serene, fearless, firm in the vow of continence, brahmacharya, with the mind controlled. He should sit in yoga, ever thinking of me, devotional meditation again, and regarding me, devotional meditation again, as his supreme goal. Now, of course, there is meditation other than devotional meditation, but I'm mentioning this because, as I said, it is the easiest of the practices. And keeping himself ever steadfast in this manner, this meditator of subdued mind attains the peace abiding in me that culminates in the cessation of all desires and all movements in the mind. And he is using a term, nirvana, that also is used in Buddhism. And then goes back, how will you now make meditation easier, physically, mentally, emotionally? You have to have a balance. Success is not for him who eats too much or eats too little. It's not for one who sleeps too much nor sleeps too little. Now you may ask, what is enough sleep? Well, that's individual, it's subjective. Everybody has their own different requirements. But the thing that disturbs our sleep and relaxation the most is all the anxiety in the day that you had. And anxiety is caused by future orientation, a future-orientated mind. For him who is moderate in eating and also in recreation, recreation is important, moderate in work and play, who is regulated in sleep and wakefulness, yoga becomes the destroyer of misery, physical, emotional, spiritual. And when the mind, completely controlled, rests in the self alone, that is that internal essence of your own being that religion calls God, free from desire for any objects, and one might say free from a desire for results, even in meditation, then is one said to be established in this meditation. And then, as I quoted earlier, this yata dipo, as a lamp in a windless place, does not flicker. That's the definition. This is the simile used for the disciplined mind of a yogi, practicing this concentration on the self. And when this mind is completely subdued by the practice of yoga, attains quietude, that is, there are no waves coming up in the mind. And when beholding that internal self by the small self, the mind, he is satisfied in the internal self alone, the Atman. And when he feels that infinite bliss which is pervaded by the purified intellect and which transcends the senses and established wherein he never wavers from reality, having gained which he thinks there is no greater gain, being established therein, he is not shaken even by the heaviest of sorrows. Then the curious definition, and there we leave it off. Let the severance from the connection with pain be known by the name of yoga. This is a wonderful definition. Tam vidyad dukkha sam yoga viyogam yoga sammadnitam. This yoga should be practiced. How? With perseverance. Don't miss a day. Even if you're struggling in the beginning, and without depression of the mind, that means without a despondency, will I be able to do this? Or without any goal in mind, sitting down. No, I can't meditate. Oh, try. Squeeze your eyes. If you do that, that's not meditation. Abandoning without reserve all desires born of your habitual subconscious mind and completely curbing in by the mind all the senses from all sides. So it goes on like that. We leave off that 6th chapter, the 24th stanza, but it will go on to 34 stanzas in total. Sorry, more than that. It'll go on to some 40 stanzas and odd, 47 stanzas are there. So you can say that's roughly halfway through the subject of meditation. It's a very valuable chapter in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. I think that's all we have time for today. So thank you.